All right, so today we're jumping right into the middle of the Mississippi River to unpack a really wild chapter from Mark Twain's classic, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Now, for Huck and Jim, that river has been their safe haven, a real place of freedom. But that peace is about to get completely shattered by a couple of very unwelcome and supposedly very royal guests.
I mean, just put yourself in Huck's shoes for a second. You've escaped this terrible, abusive life, and you've linked up with Jim, who's running from slavery. For a little while, this raft is everything. It's your own little floating kingdom of freedom. And then, bam, one morning, two guys come tearing out of the woods, dogs nipping at their heels, desperate for a getaway. The peace? Officially over. It's like the very world they were trying to escape just climbed right on board.
So, who in the world are these two guys who just crashed Huck and Jim's sanctuary? Well, they're on the run, that's for sure. But as Huck and Jim are about to find out, what they're running to is a whole new dimension of trouble. Okay, so you've got one guy who's young and one who's old. They don't even know each other, but you can tell they immediately clock a kindred spirit. They're both professional tricksters. And what's so amazing is how they immediately start performing. These guys aren't just con men, they're actors. And this little raft has just become their new stage. And this is where it all gets seriously theatrical. Because these two, they're not just your average criminals. Oh, no. They claim to have much, much grander identities, and they don't waste a single second letting their new captive audience know all about their so-called noble blood. The younger guy goes first. He puts on this huge, sorrowful show, and he even manages to squeeze out a few tears. He claims he's the real Duke of Bridgewater, and that his wicked uncle stole his title and all his money back in England. So now he says he's been reduced to this, a poor soul in dirty clothes. And, of course, he tells Huck and Jim that from now on, they have to call him my lord.
Well, the older guy sees this performance, and you can just see him thinking, hold my beer. He basically scoffs at the Duke and declares that he is the one, the only, the true king of France. The Dauphin, he calls himself, the long-lost son of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette who somehow escaped his tragic fate. His story is way more dramatic, way more important.
And what's so brilliant here is the one-upmanship. This is a full-on lying contest. The Duke's story? It's a classic tale, a stolen inheritance. But the King's story? That's a world historical tragedy. This isn't just a scam. It's a battle between two master storytellers, each trying to make sure he's top dog on the raft. So now that they've sorted out their royal pecking order on the raft, it's time to take the show on the road. For their first big collaboration, they head to a little town called Pokeyville to test their scams on some unsuspecting folks on shore. They float into town on a Sunday, and what do they see? The perfect mark, a super passionate religious meeting. The preacher's yelling, people are singing, the emotional energy is through the roof. For a con artist like the King, this isn't a church service, it's a gold mine. It's Twain showing us that so-called civilization can be just as gullible as anywhere else. And here's the King's playbook. It's so simple, but man, is it effective. First, you find a crowd that's already worked up. Then you spin this incredible sob story. He was a pirate for 30 years. After that, you give them a noble cause. He needs money to go back to the Indian Ocean and save his old pirate buddies. And finally, you pass the hat and watch the money just pour right in. And the performance is just wow. The King is shouting, he's crying, telling everyone he's a changed man, and the crowd absolutely eats it up. They're crying right along with him, just stuffing money into a hat. The preacher is praising him as the truest friend of pirates, and the prettiest girls in town are even giving him kisses. He plays them like a fiddle. It's a masterful and pretty cynical look at how a good story can totally overpower a willing audience. So what's the grand total from this incredible performance? $87. Now, you have to remember, for that time and place, that was a huge amount of money. A small fortune, all collected in just a few minutes from a bunch of good people who thought they were helping a poor, reformed sinner. But this whole chaotic episode isn't just about a couple of con artists. It serves a much bigger purpose in the story. It's really about what Huck sees and the incredibly important lesson he learns about people, about lies, and about what it takes to survive. And this is where we see just how sharp Huck is. While Jim is totally impressed and the townspeople are completely fooled, Huck sees these two for exactly what they are. He says it himself. Of course, they were not dukes or kings, I knew that. They were bad men. Huck's built-in BS detector is just ringing off the hook. He's an observer, not a believer.
So if he knows they're liars, why does he just play along? Well, this quote right here is the key. Huck has this deeply practical way of looking at the world, something he says he learned from Dad. To survive, you don't start fights you know you can't win. Stuck on a tiny raft with two dangerous men, the smartest move is to play their game, call them my lord, and just keep the peace.
And that really leaves us with the big idea of this chapter. Huck makes a conscious choice here. He chooses to put up with evil just to keep himself safe. And it brings up a really tough question that goes way beyond this book. When you're confronted by powerful, dishonest people, is it always better to fight back? Or is it sometimes just smarter to survive? It's a dilemma that really defines Huck's character and his incredible journey down that river.